Good morning to Europe and good afternoon to Asia. Also good evening to Asia for those who reach us now from Australia and New Zealand. My name is Ms Anula GALEWSKA. I'm from ASEF's Education Department, and together with my colleagues here at ASEF's headquarters in Singapore, I welcome you to the second webinar for our 22nd ASEF Summer University. Our topic today is a crash course on sustainable tourism, and I'm happy that during this webinar we have not only our participants from the Summer University with us, we live stream this webinar also on our ASEF Facebook page. So a warm welcome also to the larger audience beyond our ASEFSU22 core group. We are very curious to hear and to learn today from our expert, Anula GALEWSKA. Anula, a warm welcome to you from Urban Adventures, more on sustainable tourism. Anula is the responsible business manager at Urban Adventures. She's also the co-founder of Travindi, which is the world's largest resource of news and innovations in sustainable tourism. So a real core expert, and we would like to learn from you today a short history of tourism, the positive and the negative impacts of tourism, what sustainable tourism is all about, how to measure it, and obviously a lot of good, not so many bad examples, hopefully more good examples of sustainable tourism. And before I pass the floor to you, Anula, thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure to have you. Just a few practical notes for those participants who join us via Zoom. Please write your questions, your comments in the chat room on Zoom. And for those who join us through Facebook, you can write your questions in the comment section on Facebook. So we'll hear first from Anula, a short presentation. And afterwards, the floor is yours, and Anula is looking forward to your comments, to your questions, and answer this. So the webinar takes about 1 hour, and Anula, I pass the floor to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me properly? And yeah, great. So I'm so excited. You have to know that it's quite weird running a webinar, because at the end I'm sitting in my Skype booth somewhere in Gran Canaria and I'm talking to myself. So I can only imagine that I have the audience out there. So I'm really excited to meet you, and hopefully you'll get in touch with me later on as well. So let's get it started. Yes, I'm the responsible business manager at Urban Adventures, and I'll have a pleasure to show you a few examples of what we do in sustainable tourism. As already mentioned, there are a few things we're going to cover. We'll start briefly with the history and impacts, a few basic definitions, and then lots of examples and some ideas on measurement and benefits why sustainable tourism is good for business. So the whole webinar is kind of a basics of sustainable tourism, and hopefully you'll learn also several good examples how tourism businesses do it in practice. So this is what tourism was several centuries ago. It was pure, authentic, and kind of a private experience. And this is what we have right now. So how we got from this pure, authentic a type of traveling to mass tourism, crowded, selfie stick type of experience. So in the beginning, tourism was only for privileged people, but it was already in ancient Egypt. Greece and Romans were traveling. And then we had in the Middle Ages the pilgrimage tours, so very religious tourism. And then the official first tour was called the Grand Tour from the UK to France and Italy. People were traveling. And then we had the invention of the railway, which let people travel faster, and then the plane, which made us travel around the globe. In the 18th century, the first mass tourism company was created. It was Thomas Cook, which is still alive, and you know it probably quite well. And then fast forward, we have the invention of internet, which connected us to people globally and allowed more interactions and allowed tourism to grow. And then Google and TripAdvisor, which totally changed the way how we book tours and how we travel around the world. So TripAdvisor connected actually the activity providers in the destination directly with tourists abroad. So the mass tourist operators are not necessarily for us to travel right now. And then the invention of selfie stick, or how mass tourism at its worst or best looks right now. So let's see what's the good, the bad, and the ugly side of tourism, and actually why tourism matters. But let's start from the good side. We need to be aware that tourism is a huge, huge economical driver in the world and for the many, many countries. 1 in 10 jobs worldwide are related to tourism. Tourism also creates 10% of the GDP worldwide, and tourism is the third biggest export category after chemicals and fuels. So thanks to tourism, economies are growing, and in many destinations, especially in the developing countries, sometimes tourism is the major source of income for locals. Tourism also creates cultural understanding and helps support cultural heritage, preserve a natural environment. And there are many, many different positive aspects of tourism. So it's a great thing. But with this great thing, not everything is so great. Tourism is growing crazy. We are expecting 1.8 billion people in 2030, and it's already looking like this. So imagine Venice or China in a couple of years with double number of tourists in these destinations. Of course, locals are not very happy about it. That's why we can see a lot of demonstrations and protests against tourists, like destinations like Barcelona, Ibiza, Berlin, Amsterdam. They are all starting, and people are protesting against tourism. Tourism also affects our natural environment. We are littering, the beaches are in a terrible state. We are polluting the oceans and the air with constant flying. So there are a lot of negative effects. Just let's have a look at all the negative impacts of tourism. From the social cultural impacts, we have to look at over-tourism, which is a big thing now. And a few weeks or months ago, the first documentary on over-tourism was published by responsibletravel.com, which I definitely recommend you to watch. Over-tourism causes invasion of private space, exploitation of locals, and human trafficking, especially children, are influenced, and prostitution, crime, loss of authenticity of different places, and destruction of culture site, commodification of culture. So these are the things that are negative from the social culture part. From the environmental side, definitely tourism contributes a lot to the climate change, and the main contributor are airlines and our flights. Then loss of biodiversity, because we are destroying areas, pollution, noise, especially if we are looking at areas that are quite calm naturally, but then with massive tourism we have a lot of noise being created, littering, as you saw in the previous picture, and also disturbing wildlife. So the animal welfare, tourism is disturbing wild animals, and while we think that riding an elephant is a fun thing to do, or taking a selfie with a tiger, you don't really realize that these wild animals, before doing that, they have to be beaten up or given drugs to perform. So tourism, these are the negative sides for the environment. From the economic part, we have to look at tourism leakage. Tourism leakage means how much money actually stays not in the destination but all the way. So let's give an example. If I'm from Poland, so if I book a tour in Poland and I fly to Egypt to stay in a hotel in Egypt, only about 10% of money stays in Egypt. The whole rest is split between the partners abroad, so in Poland or in other partners, but only a small percentage goes to the local community. So this is called tourism leakage. Then gentrification, an increase of prices of rentals or shops, especially in the touristic areas, and then the big urban areas feel it really well. And then seasonal employment. So as you can see, these were all different aspects, negative aspects of tourism. And then sustainable tourism comes in as a power and the source of how to sort it out. So it's not that tourism is bad, it just tourism is actually a great industry. We just need to figure out how to make it better. So the power is yours and ours. So let's see what sustainable tourism is all about let's see the basics. Have you heard about 3P approach, people, planet, profit? This is the approach that from the management point of view, takes into account the needs and requirements from all these three areas. So the socio-cultural aspects of people of host communities, but it also takes into account our travelers, the planet, so the environmental aspects, the climate change, and also the wildlife, and profit, economical aspects. This means, of course, elevating poverty in destinations and making sure our communities earn money. But what is very important, sustainability means also sustainable financially business. So if a tour business does a lot of good stuff for the community and does a lot of good stuff for the environment, but is not able to sustain itself financially, is not making any money, at the end, it's not a sustainable business. So when you are creating a new ideas for projects, make sure that actually they bring revenues, and then they will be able to sustain themselves in the long term. So all these three aspects are equally important. From the definition of sustainable development, where the tourism also comes from, is sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. From the tourist perspective, it means that if I create a tourist activity or I build a hotel today, I want my current friends and myself to enjoy it, and travelers, but I also think about my kids and grandchildren to be able to visit the same place in several years in the future, in a few decades, and be able to enjoy the same place and the same nature as well. Another definition says making better places for people to live in and better places for people to visit, which enhances the connection that tourism is not only for the travelers to enjoy, relax, and have fun, but it is also for the host communities. There are many people living worldwide which are not able to travel because of different reasons, health or mainly financial reasons. So actually tourism can create experiences not only for the traveler, but by bringing a foreign traveler to a small village somewhere in Africa, Poland, Asia, wherever, it also creates a culture interaction and brings understanding to the host community and help people learn from different cultures. So this should be a win-win situation for the travelers and host communities. Here's a very brief history of sustainable tourism. I'm not gonna go deeper into this right now, but I definitely encourage you to take a look, especially at the Cape Town Declaration on Responsible Tourism and Destination, which gives an overview and guidelines of what responsible tourism is, and also Global Sustainable Tourism Council page. This is an organization under UNWTO, which is the main organization that sets standards for sustainable tourism worldwide, and also gives a very specific guidelines and indicators for the destinations and the industry what should be done in sustainable tourism. So very briefly to summarize, sustainable tourism makes everyone happy. First of all, the tourist is happy because they are having fun and enjoying the experience, doing something unique. Then we have happy locals because they are earning money, they are interacting with foreigners, and they see a social improvement in their destination. Environment is not being harmed and the wildlife is being preserved. And also your business or a business that you're working with is making money, and the business is also financially sustainable. So all these aspects should work well. And who's responsible then for making sustainable tourism happen? Is it the traveler? Is it the business? Is it the government? Who? Guess what? It's everyone. There is no one person or single responsible for making sustainable tourism happen. Each of these roles have its own responsibility. So, for example, the government, this is very important for governments to set specific regulations, especially on the destination level. For example, in Machu Picchu, like how many people should be visiting the site, nature parks, and also supporting financially initiatives and supporting the infrastructure for locals and how the money flows, and giving some tax standards and so on. So the government role is very important. On the other hand, we have a traveler. So actually, the travelers are those who move and push things forward. Right now, in particular, like you guys and like millennials are those who really take into consideration when working with companies or choosing companies, if they are like environmentally friendly, or if they do some good stuff for the society. And millennials are activists, so they are definitely expecting also companies in the private sector to do good. So without travelers, nothing will happen. Without the government, things will be very, very slow. And then there's a third part, which is the private business. So as I work for a private business, I'm going to share with you what's expected from especially a tour business in terms of sustainability. I will show you a few minimum standards followed by a couple of examples. So first of all, sustainable tourism should be respecting the socio-cultural authenticity of host communities. It means preserving cultural heritage, creating intercultural understanding and tolerance. So on a practical side, from the cultural point of view, businesses should be creating codes of behavior, how tourists, how we should be behaving in culturally and historically sensitive sites. For example, when we go to a cultural site, to a church, for example, then a guide should be telling the tourists how to behave, how to dress, not to disturb locals. We should not be selling artifacts or illegal souvenirs like stones or bricks from archaeological sites. And then tourism should be using promotional elements that include art from the local community, elements of architecture, for example. If you go to an international hotel, then you see, wherever you go, you have exactly the same room, and you don't even know in which country you're sleeping. So the idea is that yes, it's okay to have international hotels, but their responsibility is to include the local elements of art and culture into the architecture, in the design. It can be local arts and paintings inside of the rooms or hotels. So including culture into local business. And then, of course, respecting intellectual property rights of local communities, which I hope sounds like very, very basic and obvious. So giving you an example from our Urban Adventures business, what we do to support local cultures and also support artists financially is we run this product line called Made in Tours. These are tours, like shopping tours, but not regular shopping tours. We are not taking people to shopping malls, but we actually take people to local artisans and local boutiques and places where things are done with hands. So the traveler not only gets a great souvenir, but also interacts with the person who made the souvenir, who made the dress, who made whatever it can be that they want to buy, jewelry, for example, and they interact and they learn their story. And by doing this, we support, by including artists into our itineraries, we directly support them financially as well, and we promote our local culture. On the other hand, sustainable tourism ensures viable long-term economic operations, providing socioeconomic benefits to all stakeholders. So tourism should be supporting poverty elevation in the host communities and should be supporting local entrepreneurs through supply chain. Yes, I just got something wrong with the slides. Yes, so tour businesses are supporting local initiatives and social infrastructure and community development. So for example, if you have a hotel, the hotel could be supporting financially the facilities around the area, around the hotel that would be used both by tourists but also for the host communities. And then one very, very powerful way of supporting economic benefit in the local communities is local employment. So if you have a tour company and you're taking tourists from the UK, let's say, to Croatia, you should not be hiring UK guides, but the local ones who know the local environment much better. And by doing this, you're giving them job, and they are paying their taxes locally. So this is how tourist businesses can support the economy by hiring people, and then also giving equal chances for people to go up in the career ladder afterwards through training. And then support for local entrepreneurs to help sell their products by going to local restaurants, by selling their services, or at least encouraging tourists to use the local services and spend money locally in the local restaurants. And then it's important, especially when it comes to tour businesses and going to poor communities or some kind of closed communities, indigenous communities, to make sure that we have a code of behavior to when we are entering these communities. And it shouldn't be that for example, favela tours, which are quite popular now in Brazil, unfortunately, in many cases, they are done like, let's go there and see those poor people like monkeys in the zoo. It's a really bad way of doing this. If we do this, and if we take people to these places, we need to make sure that we have respect for locals, and we also include them into our itinerary so they benefit financially. For example, by hiring a local guide from a favela, or staying in a local cafeteria to have a coffee with people and also interact with them. So not only we benefit, but also them. So another example that we do for supporting economical growth in the destinations are our food tours. So food tours sounds kind of like a regular product, but what we do at Urban Adventure is that 100% of places like restaurants and cafes we take people to are owned by local companies, local micro-entrepreneurs. But then we decided to go even further, and this year we launched street food campaign, and you know, the Michelin stars, and there are many different restaurants, like high class, very famous. But then when we actually travel, what we love doing, all of us probably, is enjoying our street food, our burgers, our kebabs, our fried chickens. So as Urban Adventures, we decided to recognize those local tiny vendors, micro vendors inside of our communities and award them. So we asked our travelers and our partners to nominate street food vendors, and we're giving the awards at the end of this year. So this is something we do to support and promote micro entrepreneurship in the destination. And another big project of ours that we are very proud of, and we received several awards, is In Focus program. So these are tours run in collaboration with non-profit organizations and social enterprises. So we take actually tourists to visit these organizations and interact with them. So tourists can learn and meet the change makers in person and learn from them. And here is a beautiful story of Sergio in Bucharest. We work in Bucharest with the Parada Foundation that supports homeless people. And when we started working with them, we helped them train one of the homeless beneficiaries they had, called Sergio, who then became our guide. And last year, after working with us for a while, Sergio was able to afford an apartment. So actually, he started his normal life again. And we are very, very proud of this story, and we are looking forward to giving more work opportunity to people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And another example is our collaboration with One Horizon in Nairobi. We work with a community that was very, very poor, and we bring travelers to this community. The travelers bring chickens and piglets and to women there, and then the women are being trained how to take care of the animals, and then they are able to sell the animals. So after 1.5 years of working with this community, we managed to eradicate poverty in a group of 3,000 people in 36 local communities. So this is a powerful impact that we're making, and we have this in several destinations around the world. So In Focus tours are actually a good example of how we are supporting NGOs and nonprofits, not by giving them money, but actually involving them in an activity and paying for the services so they can also develop their sustainable business model. And at Urban Adventures, for us, it's extremely important that as much money as possible goes to the local community. Our locals are, our guides are local, our local representatives, and because of our business model, support local economy. So in sustainable tourism, we believe that as much local as possible is an answer. But another way how you can support local communities financially is by doing donation. This is a simple model that anyone can do. And I'm giving you an example from Intrepid Foundation that we are also part of as Intrepid Group. The model is that the traveler gives money, and then the Intrepid Foundation doubles the money and then supports the nonprofit organization. So for example, if you wanted to give a 10 euro to one of our projects, for example, in Vietnam, we have an organization called Blue Dragon. You give 10 euro, then Intrepid Foundation or Intrepid Group adds another 10 euro, and then 20 euro are given to the organization. So you can empower by giving this money. With the donations, however, what is very, very important is that you should be measuring the impact and making sure that the money are being used properly. And another thing is that if a traveler gives money to an organization, you should follow up with the traveler afterwards, for example, in 1 year, and let them know how the money was being spent. It really builds the trust and credibility of such projects, because unfortunately, in many cases, donations have a negative image and they don't work well. So following up with the tourists and being very clear how the money is used, this also works well, and it's quite of a simple example how any tourist business can support local initiatives. And then the last part is the environmental, supporting the environment and making optimal use of environmental resources, the energy, water, and also making sure that we support biodiversity. In practice, that means that a business should have a purchasing policy that favors environmentally friendly products. For example, at a hotel, we are using like cleaning supplies, we use furnitures, we buy coffee and tea and everything. So anything we have should be environmentally friendly if it makes financial sense. And then as well, reducing single-use plastic on the tours, in the hotels, favoring glass over plastic, and so on. And then water and energy usage should be measured in the offices and on the tours. And carbon footprint, for example, reducing number of flights we're taking. And then on the other hand, a big part is taking care of our wildlife and animals. So I think it was 2 years ago that this was like a big wave against animal tourism and animals in captivity. So Intrepid and Urban Adventures are one of these organizations that stopped offering tours that involve animals in captivity. We no longer ride elephants. We only go to places that are have very high standards and helping the elephants or any other animals to actually heal. And in general, we believe that wild animals should be in the wildlife and not trapped anywhere. So this is the direction we are going globally. And in terms of carbon management, sustainability, sometimes people only see sustainability from the environmental point of view. And then carbon management means like reducing our carbon footprint. And then there are 3 steps that we need to follow: measure, reduce, and offset. And then if you've heard about carbon offsetting, it means that, okay, I'm flying and then I'm going to give money to an organization to plant trees somewhere in, let's say, in Latin America, and then I'm done. This is not how it works. Carbon offsetting is a tool that we can use and as a support tool, but our main goal should be to reduce the carbon footprint and you reduce the energy and water that we are using. This can be by giving incentives for people and travelers to use public transport, for example, trains and buses instead of flights, or reducing the number of flights. So instead of taking several, taking one direct flight. And if you have to fly somewhere, just make sure that you spend enough time in the destination. And then using reusable water bottles and recycling waste and so on. So these are the things you can do to conserve, to reduce your carbon footprint. More about this you can find on the Intrepid Group page, and also more on our stand on the wildlife. And then there's the last part, which means sustainability management. And This means having long-term sustainability management system, having your goals, having your targets and ways to track your progress in terms of sustainability, having trainings for employees, so when you're onboarding them, and then you can actually teach them how to improve within sustainability. And one more very important thing is accurate promotion of destinations and activities that you are using. So imagine that you run a tour around the lake, and then in your promotional materials, you have this beautiful picture of a lake with a rainbow. But what is the chance that a traveler visiting this destination will actually see the rainbow? So be realistic in your promotional materials. So very important part is also measuring your impact. You can't manage what you don't measure. And one of the frameworks that we use is UN Global Compact and also Sustainable Development Goals. But I know that Hostling International will tell you more about it, so I'm not gonna spoil the whole topic, but also this is very important, just that you're measuring the impact. And if you do stuff and then you don't actually see your targets, and if you achieve the goals, then it's pointless. So make sure that in any case studies you're going to work on and strategies to measure the impact. And the last part I wanted to cover is, okay, so we all do all this stuff for sustainability, but why? What's in it for the business? The first thing is compliance. So now international companies or governments are expecting businesses to meet minimum standards. So if you want to be legal, you need to comply with sustainability criteria. And then very obvious and main driver, especially in terms of hotels, is cost reduction. When you save water, save energy, then you also save money. And then you can earn more money, because by having sustainable tour products, first of all, you can attract new customers, but also customers that are socially aware and environmentally conscious, they are willing to spend more money. So basically you can, by enhancing your sustainability operations, you can convince your customers to pay more. Attracting top talents. Right now, especially millennials, are very picky when it comes to which company they want to work for. And that's why employees prefer brands that do good environmentally or socially. So when recruiting new people, this is one of the things that you should be also highlighting. And adding value to the customer. Like, sustainability means quality. There's no way you can have a sustainable tourism product that is not high quality. Also, when you treat your employees well, you treat your community well, then they will also treat your tourists and your customers well, and then the customers will be happy at the end. So this is all connected. Strengthening brand and reputation. Those brands, and as shown on the from the different research perspectives, brands that sometimes they basically fuck up something, but for years they were properly sustainable, ethical businesses, then people will say, okay, whatever, we'll forget. So forgiveness is higher for sustainable tourism brands. And if you're unethical or you're not highlighting your sustainability, then people will be more kind of angry with you or strict with you. And then it helps, sustainability helps stand out, especially in the areas where sustainability is not so common. You can differentiate yourselves from the competition by enhancing your sustainability stand. Like, I wouldn't be here if we were not doing all the sustainability stuff, because Asia Europe Foundation wants to work with sustainable businesses for this. So this is how you can get connections and networks, by enhancing your sustainability. And then making impact simply feels good. So if you do good something for your neighbor, if you give money to a charity, if you help an old lady to cross the street, you just feel really good about yourself. And the same goes for the business. Usually sustainability is driven by individuals within the organizations, and they do it just to feel good. And then one very important aspect that sometimes gets forgotten is that by being sustainable, you actually can solve real business challenges by creating a shared value. I just want to give you a short overview of creating shared value, and encourage you to read the article that I shared in the materials. Creating a shared value is about enhancing competitiveness of a company, so making your company better. In the same time, creating an economic and social conditions, better conditions in the local community. I'm just going to give you an example. You are looking for employees and you're desperate because there are no good employees around your area. And you also want to have employees that will be loyal to your brand. So what you can do, instead of competing and stealing employees from other companies, you can actually work with a disadvantaged community, train these people, and then have very loyal companies till the very end. So by doing this, you're solving your problem of employment, and on the other hand, you're creating job opportunities and improving employability of a local community. So this is one example any business can do. So creating shared value is a win-win for the business and for all its stakeholders. So we should be finding solutions that are good for the business and financially stable business, and also for everyone around us. So that's it about the crash course. I just want to make sure that you know that we are always looking for top talents for our guides, staff, new destinations owners, and our InFocus partners. So if you're interested, you can approach me or sign up to the newsletter. I think you'll see the link later on. And if you have any questions and you want to catch up later on, just drop me an email at anulaurbanadventures.com. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Anula, for this crash course and for this bunch of examples worldwide from your business, Urban Adventures. We have already a few participants from the Summer University who ask questions, and I think without losing any time, I go straight into these questions. Please, for those who are connecting with us on Facebook, write your questions in the comment section, and for our Summer University participants in our chat group on Zoom. So we have questions from Laos, from Poland, from Russia, and from Latvia and Bulgaria. And I think, start with a question from Indra from Latvia. She asks, have you worked with governments to create sustainable tourism policies and strategies?
Us as a business, directly no. However, there are different associations. For example, we are part of Travel Life, which is a certification program for tour businesses. And Travel Life has a board of kind of advisors, board of tourism businesses, and we discuss together all the different issues. And then Travel Life is doing the lobbying part. Also, another platform for doing is Global Sustainable Tourism Council, which I mentioned before. So directly, we are not in a position.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? Can you share your camera? Because currently, thanks for responding to the question. You just need to share the camera with you.
Yes, of course, but I'm just wondering why I don't have the camera then. Show my... that's a good question. I have no idea why it's not.
Give me a second. I check with my colleagues here. No, it's fine. Good. It seems to be working. Okay.
Okay. Yes. So what I was saying, that we are not in a position directly to work with specific governments because we are a global organization present in over 160 destinations. So we use the international platforms for lobbying indirectly to governments, and then we work more on a local level, sometimes with tourism boards, to support and promote sustainable tourism.
Thank you so much. Then the next question is from Yanka from Bulgaria, and the question is, how do you add new destinations to your urban adventure list, and what are your criteria?
Great question. As I said, we are always looking for new destination owners, and our first, you need to just sign up on our page. So on Urban Adventures, at the bottom, you will see join Urban Adventures as a partner, and then you will see all the details. But actually, the main criteria is that we are looking for a value fit. We have a branded values called Perfect Flavor, and then we have all this described how our culture and values mean in practice. So the first question we have is about our culture and values, and then we are looking for people who are open-minded and willing to work hard. Not necessarily they don't need to have any experience in tourism, because we then provide the full training for everyone.
Wonderful, thank you. Then the question from Alexandra from Russia. What do you think about wild and natural zoos for tourists? Is it sustainable or not?
There are a few zoos, in particular zoos that are certified. So there are animal welfare standards that were created by APTA, an organization from the UK, about 2 years ago. So I can maybe share a link with you later on as well. So there are specific things, and also World Animal Protection Organization gives a specific standards and reviews and certifies specific organizations and places like this. It can be zoos that are closed zoos, but also which are just a few of them are properly certified. And then in terms of any animal places where you can see wild animals, then World Animal Protection has a full list of those that are supported. But as I said before, my personal approach is that wild animals should be in wildlife, and I understand there's some to some extent we need them for preservation and also learning and education, but we need only a few, and definitely tourism should not be supporting this type of activity because then the demand creates the response and more places being created like this.
Can we just go up on the question catalog a little bit? I saw a question from Alexandra from Russia and as well from Pakam from Laos, which is a bit similar. They talk about, give me a second, yes, they talk about training for tourists, for hoteliers. No, you have to go a little bit down to the question so I can get it, please. I asked my technical colleagues here. Yes, employee sustainability training is especially interesting for Pakam and Laos and also some other participants. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Once again, what's the question?
For employees in the tourist industry. And do they receive any sustainability training? How is this also done from the top management? How does it cascade down to
so ideally, every company, companies that are actually dedicated to sustainability, naturally it comes from the top, so from a manager or a director, and then there should be a person assigned to take care of sustainability, like I am at Urban Adventures as responsible business manager. And then, yes, we are training all employees and the guides. So I can share our example. The guides during the onboarding process are being trained around sustainability. We have a guides conference that covers this topic as well. We have sustainability guidelines for all our tours. So we do have some specific trainings that on each position you need to do. But then we also include a lot of sustainability communication on a daily basis. We have our Facebook groups and different platforms, communication platforms, where we discuss, for example, how to approach accessible tourism, how to talk to people on wheelchairs, how to solve plastic bottle issues. And it's very important that there is no good solution for all these questions. Sometimes there's not only like black and white, and you can find a solution for one thing and then another thing will have to be compromised. So I encourage, in terms of sustainability training, there should be one, but it also requires an ongoing communication and learning, peer-to-peer learning, because sometimes a guide or a receptionist will have really a brilliant idea. So how to get these people engaged in the discussion on sustainability, this is the key to success, I think.
Brian from the Philippines. He would like to partner with your organization, and he asked in particular if there's any campaign also you know about to reduce single-use plastic items. Do you have any NGO you're working with in this field? This is also a topic of our summer university, one of the big challenges we try to solve.
Is it from the Philippines?
Yes.
Yes,
so
we are.
Answer.
Yeah, I have to say that Philippines and Palawan, I've been there. I had some clients there consulting them. It's one of my favorite places in the world. So hello. But yes, they're actually plastic. There are two hot topics globally around sustainability right now. First one is accessible tourism, and the second, even hotter, is plastic. And there are several campaigns against plastic. You should check Travelers Against Plastic. It's an organization, and there are many tourism companies supporting it, and there are many companies that actually reduce or reject single-use plastic in their tours. But this is something, for example, and we have a now campaign in Bali around reducing plastic, and also we are teaching hotels how to reduce plastic. So there's a lot of materials around it. If you want to, I'm happy to share afterwards with some links as well. But the thing is that we have an issue right now, and we really don't know how to solve it. In destinations that are very high in humidity, and also we run day tours, sometimes we just don't find a solution how to refill our bottles, or even by giving travelers glass bottles is reducing plastic, but it is still creating a lot of waste. So these issues, they simply sometimes don't have one easy solution, and this is where the brainstorming comes in. But yes, there is this is a big flow right now of a wave of reducing plastic globally, especially in the coastal destinations, because our ocean is really suffering. So I'm happy to talk, and yes, and we are looking for partners in the Philippines.
Already one from our summer university participant group. The next question is from Savia from Bangladesh. So he refers to your talk about the souvenirs and visitors, and just sorry, there was another question coming in. And they're able to see the production. Sorry. You are talking about souvenirs and visitors, that they are able to see the production of these on site, and this is fine, he comments, but when you're going to meet a large segment of visitors' demand, won't it affect its authenticity? And what about product commodification, which is also a great concern in this context? What is your answer to that?
Yes, definitely. Usually this is how the whole tourism flows. Like in the beginning, you go and you find something pristine and untouched, or it can be a local artisan that does something very unique, and then you see a growing demand, and then it loses its authenticity. So this is how it works. And then how we can avoid it is to make sure that if you take people and you actually have more than one person that you visit, so we always make sure that we have a base of local artisans that we visit and take tourists to. So it's not that one person is only benefiting, but we are rotating, and rotating is kind of a way to kind of balance the negative sides of tourism and having too high demand. And including new people. So we are always looking for new opportunities as well. And those who are actually already, we usually work with those who are just starting, and those who are doing well, then they can advance and they can find their own direct channels of sales. So this is again balancing the supply and demand. I think you have muted mic, or I cannot hear you right now.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. We're so carefully listening to you that and listening is in this case better than speaking. So I'm the transmitter of the next two questions. We have two more. I look at the time. We have allocated about an hour for this. So I think we can close with the question from Maria Teresa from Spain, and we have at the end the one from Jakub, who raised it. Jakub is from Poland, who raised it at the very beginning. So I first read the question from Maria Teresa. She thanks you for your time. She has been also checking your website, which you didn't know before, so I'm happy that we use this opportunity to make urban adventures more known. So her question is related to guides. Are they needed to be officially professional guides in case of an existing regulation in the country, or can they just be local random people? Is there some system which controls the quality of tourist activities offered on the website? Oh, there are a lot of questions here. Are there reviews written on the website and the system to control the quality? Especially these days that hotels give a huge weight and emphasis on opinions in the internet, like websites, like you can see on websites as TripAdvisor, etc. So that was a package of questions.
Of course. So I see two main. First of all, if guides should be professional tour guides. Actually, this is regulated by laws, local laws. So in particular in Spain, I'm based in Gran Canaria right now, and I also run Gran Canaria Urban Adventures. So in different countries or in different locations, actually, sometimes you have areas where you can that only can be shown by certified licensed guides, and so we of course follow the regulations. In some countries this is not the case, so anyone can be a guide, and even in the destinations where we have strong legal requirements, but still we offer products that are not considered as tours per se, but we offer activities. So for example, we have cooking workshops, we go to local handicrafts makers, so these activities can be performed by people who do not have a license, but we always look at the local requirements to make sure that we meet the law, but also we put a lot of effort on training the guides, and we work with people with no previous experience in tourism. It's very often the case. We work with actors, we work with comedians, we work with teachers. Basically, we're looking for people who are great storytellers, and they are great, outgoing, and they are full of passion. And in Prague, for example, we have a bunch of guides who are just into beer, and each guide has designed their own beer tour with the places that they love the most. So we work with passionate people with interest rather than licensed guides. So licensing is important. So sometimes if we see a person has a potential, we would help them get them trained and get the certificate, rather than say, no, you cannot work with us because you don't have a license. So we get the right people on board and check if they have the value fit, and then we train them to become great guides and meet the legal requirements. And to answer the second part, of course, we have a control check and quality check. So our tours, before being launched, they have to be reviewed internally. So we have a sustainability check. We have perfect flavor check, which are all our values and how each tour meets our values. So this is the internally. And then we have external reviews by the clients. Of course, we have reviews on the website, and we are available on TripAdvisor, V8, or Get Your Guide, Expedia, many different places and distribution channels, where always people have a chance to give us a review and feedback. But I have to say that usually it's a very positive feedback. So we don't really have many questions and issues with quality. Fortunately, that's why we don't really have any complaints team or anyone like this, because tourists, we have the Net Promoter Score, which is shows, we have very, very high Net Promoter Score because travelers really love our tours. So we're kind of happy to have great travelers and great products out there.
You lead by example, so that's where the good feedback comes from. I think you partially already responded to the question from Jakob, but if you would like to add a little bit more, it is appreciated. So Jakob from Poland asks, what is your standard procedure to cooperate with NGOs everywhere when you plan to reach with your sustainable business? Or does it depend on circumstances? So it links a little bit to what you have earlier explained, but maybe you would like to add something.
Yes. So actually, we we want to include our NGOs and nonprofits on one hand during our tours. So this can be either by visiting the NGO directly, and then the whole experience would be hosted by an NGO or a social enterprise, and then they need to have also meet the criteria of providing tourism activities, like we do, for example, with an organization called Courageous Kitchen in Bangkok, but also we do a tour like this in Krakow with an organization called Żywa Pracownia, an organization that supports homeless people, and we invite our travelers to make souvenirs, and then the money from the workshop is supporting homeless people in Krakow. So every case is a bit different, but the legal requirements that the organization has to be legally registered as an NGO, non-profit, or meet the criteria of social enterprise that are suggested by the UK social enterprise. And then we talk with them, and we check if they meet the criteria. We also require them to provide us with the financial report of how the money is being spent, so then we can report it back to the customer. And as I said, it's very important to build the credibility. And again, like, we also train these organizations. So I'm personally responsible for our In Focus program. So I'm reaching out to organizations. We work with big international organizations like Friends International, for example, but also very local organizations like the one in Krakow I mentioned. So we have some like one standard approach, but then also case by case, we make sure that they are happy. So we are not going for volume like 1,000 organizations that we work with, because these organizations require more connection and building relationships and training, because not all of them have, like, several of them have no experience in tourism. So we are actually helping them to find their own way of building a sustainable business model for themselves as well.
We have one question which was posted on by one of our alumni on our Facebook group. Actually, it's from a participant of the last summer university, previous summer university, which we undertook on a train in China, Russia, and Mongolia. His name is Damien from France. And this question, you might give a spontaneous answer, but I'm quite sure it deserves even a longer list of your thoughts on it. He asks, do you have any good documentaries and books on the topic which you recommend? So if you have one spontaneous answer to that, on a documentary and a book, that is great. Otherwise, maybe we can tap on your reading knowledge and we can share it.
No, definitely. I mentioned this one about, it's like a documentary on over-tourism by responsibletravel.com. It was published. It's a short half an hour documentary. So I would definitely recommend watching this one for a good start. Yeah, and also another thing, it's not the documentary but the TED Talk. I shared it in, it should be in your materials, preparation materials, but if you're an alumni, I'm not sure if you received it. It's a TED Talk, How to Fix Travel by Doug Lenski. It's amazing talk. I watched it several times, so sometimes I'm just copying his words because it's amazing talk that gives a great overview of the topic. So over tourism and TED Talk by Doug Lenski, How to Fix Travel. I also can share with you, I have my own playlist on TED Talks related to sustainability. Happy to share the link. It's public on YouTube.
We are going to share this with our ASEF Edu followers and friends. That's great. Okay. Anula, I would like to close this webinar with 3 points. The first one is a big thank you to you. Big thank you for preparing this presentation. We'll make it available for anybody, not only our ASEF Summer University participants, but also the audience who listened today. It was really a great pleasure to have you, to see the enthusiasm, to see how you walk the talk, and yeah, to hear all these wonderful examples. The second point is I hope the audience allows me to make a little bit of advertisement for our next webinar, which we have with Hosteling International. We go a bit into the topic of sustainable tourism and sustainable development goals. Hosteling International is also our main challenge partner and host of the ASEF Summer University Challenge. How to reduce...
They are amazing. They are amazing. I'm advertising as well.
Thank you so much. We will convey these compliments unless they hear our webinar today as well. Then they get it personally from you. And the last one is, again, a little bit of a promotion. We have put a challenge to our Summer University participants on Sustainable September. We want you to have a sustainable lifestyle, follow a sustainable lifestyle as much as possible for the coming month. Try it out. We'll post more on Facebook soon. So I invite all our friends across Asia and Europe to participate in this. With that, it's 6 o'clock, a little bit more in Singapore. That means the end of the day. It was a great end of the day. A warm bye-bye. And yeah, from my colleagues as well in the office. And see you again, Anula, and see you to the...
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you for everybody watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.